Have you ever noticed that addiction tells you one lie more than any other? It tells you that you're in control. It tells you that you can stop whenever you want. It tells you that tomorrow will be different. And for a long time, I believed that. I told myself I wasn't trapped. I told myself I was making choices. I told myself I could quit anytime I decided to. But then one day, I actually tried to stop. And that's when I discovered something terrifying. I wasn't in control at all. I was trapped. Maybe you can relate. Maybe you've told yourself, I can quit whenever I want. Maybe you've said, I just don't want to do right now. Maybe you said, I just don't want to right now. I understand. Maybe you promised yourself that next week or next month or after one more weekend, you'll finally stop. I said all those things too. The problem wasn't that I didn't know the damage addiction was causing. The problem wasn't that I didn't want to be better. The problem was that I believed I still had control. As long as I wasn't trying to quit, it felt true. But the moment I tried to stop, reality showed up. I remember making promises. This is it. No more. I'm done. Tomorrow starts a new chapter, and I meant it. I wasn't lying. I wasn't trying to fool anybody. I actually believed what I was saying. But then tomorrow came, and somehow my thinking changed. The urgency disappeared. The conviction faded. The consequences didn't seem so important anymore. The same mind that swore it was done suddenly started negotiating. Maybe one more time. Maybe I'll quit next week. Maybe things aren't that bad. Maybe I'm overreacting. The insanity wasn't that I kept using. The insanity was how quickly my thinking changed. How quickly I forgot the pain. How quickly I convinced myself this would be different this time. That's when I started realizing something was wrong. Because if I was truly in control, why couldn't I follow through on my own decision? Why did every promise eventually fall apart? Why did every fresh start end up back in the same place? The truth was hard to face. I wasn't dealing with a lack of willpower. I wasn't dealing with lack of intelligence. I was dealing with something stronger than my own determination. That's what addiction does. It convinces that you are free while keeping you chained. It whispers you're making choices while it quietly removes your ability to choose. And the worst part, most people don't realize they're trapped until they try to escape. Think about that. Nobody discovers they're stuck by continuing the behavior. They discover it when they try to stop. The person who says, I can quit anytime, eventually finds out whether that's true. And many of us discover that it wasn't true at all. I know I did. I spent years trying different methods. I made deals with myself. I created rules. I set limits. I tried motivation. I tried fear. I tried guilt. I tried shame. I tried determination. And every time I thought I had finally figured it out, I ended up right back where I started. The cycle repeated itself over and over again. Hope, determination, temporary success, craving, obsession, relapse, regret, then repeat again and again. Eventually, I had to stop asking why I couldn't stay stopped and start asking a different question. What if I can't beat this thing alone? That question changed everything. Because for years, my solution was always more self-reliance. Try harder, be stronger, get more disciplined, have more willpower. But my willpower wasn't the solution. In many ways, self-reliance was part of the problem. I kept trying to save myself. I kept trying to manage something that was clearly managing me. Nobody likes admitting that their best efforts haven't worked. But recovery began for me when honesty replaced pride. When I stopped pretending I was in control. When I stopped trying to win a battle I had already lost. That's when things started changing. Not overnight, not instantly, but gradually. The freedom I had spent years chasing started becoming real. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving one day at a time. I was actually changing. My thinking started changing. My heart started changing. My life started changing. And it all started with one uncomfortable truth. I was trapped. Because you can't escape a prison you refuse to acknowledge. You can't solve a problem you would refuse to admit exists. The truth set me free, but first it exposed me. Maybe you're watching this right now and you're wondering if you're trapped. Here's a simple question. What happens when you try to stop? Not when you talk about stopping, not when you plan to stop, not when you promise you'll stop someday. What happens when you actually stop? If it's easy, then that's great. But if you find yourself returning over and over despite your promises, if you keep crossing lines you swore you'd never cross, if your actions keep contradicting your intentions, then maybe it's time to get honest. Because honesty isn't weakness. Honesty is where recovery begins. For me, freedom didn't start when I got sober, when I got stronger. Freedom started when I got honest. When I admitted that I was doing what I was doing, it wasn't working. When I admitted I couldn't save myself, that was the beginning. And if you're struggling today, it can be the beginning for you too. You don't have to keep pretending. You don't have to keep carrying the weight alone. You don't have to keep fighting the same battle the same way. There is hope, there is freedom, and there is a way out. But it starts with honesty. Because sometimes the moment that changes your life is the moment you finally stop saying, I'm fine, and start saying, I need help. That's the first step toward freedom. If this message spoke to you, leave a comment below and share your experience. You never know who might need to hear your story. And remember, you don't realize you're trapped until you try to stop. But once you realize it, recovery can begin. Go binge the content on my channel. We can't get out of the ditch alone.